Oh, you damn right. Recruiting never stops. It's another recruiting hour. I'm Chad Hastings. That is the Mouse Hunter, the Rodent Wrangler. You will hear the story coming up. If you haven't checked out the 321 and you want all the details, you can get all kinds of good stuff this week at orangebloods.com from not only the world of recruiting and portal, but Jason's wacky life over the last week or so.
Every week, I think so.
Every week, but this week involved chasing some small creatures around, and we're not talking about his kids. We're talking about something whole different. We'll get to all that. We welcome y'all in. If you want to jump in the chat like Craig did, we appreciate you. Sandman is one of our great chatters as well. And Craig says breaking news coming. Craig, there's always something to break, right? There's always some kind of news going on. Portal is rolling, and we wanted to get into some of the portal stuff. Jason, Texas had a pretty good start to portal since we did the show last week. And obviously, signing day was taking up a big hunk of things a couple weeks ago. And then last week, it's coming off of that and analyzing everything. And then that portal opens on December 8th and things start rolling. Texas got off to a pretty good start. And you were also able to talk to one of these guys. So let's start. You had a list put together of places you thought Texas should go. And to your credit, you did list punter right up at the beginning. And then Texas thought, you know what? I think he's right. And they went after a pretty badass punter.
Yeah, they did. Jack Baumeister, I think I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying that right. Jack from Utah comes in and visits Texas last week. He commits. It's the only place he visited. He committed on the visit. It was funny because kind of said on Orange Bloods, hey, this one's probably going to move pretty quickly. Traditionally, a lot of these portal ones move quickly, but especially for special teams guys, those guys don't mess around. They want their one spot. So when Texas brought him in, we thought it would move pretty quickly. And I believe it was Friday morning. And I was giving Jack a little bit of time. I was going to text him at noon, right? What if he wants to sleep in or whatever. And word leaked out that he had committed. And I'm like, oh, man, I was literally just about to text him. So I texted him and I called him, I'm sorry. And he didn't pick up, but he texted me, said, hey, I'm on the plane. And I said, oh, sorry. And I said, committed to Texas, ? And he goes, I forget what the response was. It was something, yes, indeed, mate. Because Jack is he's one of those Australian punters. So got to love that. But yeah, big pickup, all conference punter for Utah. Average, I pulled up his stats. He was right at 45 yards per punt this year. Last year, he was 45.5 yards per punt. So, he's one of these guys that grew up playing Australian rules football. He went to one of these. It wasn't Pro Kick Australia, which is the one that I'm more familiar with. Texas is dipped in there. Mm-hmm. But it was I forget the name of it, another one of these punting academies in Australia, and opened up some doors, man, changed his life. And now he's going to be a Texas Longhorn for 1 year. Texas told him he's a graduate transfer. They said, hey, we want you to come in. We need a 1 year stopgap. Maybe help coach up Michael Kern, the current punter Texas has, maybe help fine tune his mechanics or whatever. But yeah, big pickup for Texas and Jack Baumeister, instant starter. I get it. It's a punter and people say, it's not as sexy, but hey, this dude is a bona fide guaranteed instant starter. He's going to gain you a lot of yards in field position. He's an experienced guy. He's not going to mess up. Knock on wood. He's not going to mess up for you. So I think it's a big pickup, and Texas wasted no time in getting that position filled.
There's a couple things that stood out to me, Jason. Number one, those numbers. You mentioned the average. Another number I liked, I think it was 23 or 24 balls inside the 20 and only 4 touchbacks. Just knowing the math of football, that feels like a really nice ratio of only having that many touchbacks versus pinning, you're pinning them inside the 20. And then the second thing was, I'm reading through your notes, that he said that Coach Banks reached out to him, and all I could think of was, where was that idea last year when Jeff Ketchum and you and me and a lot of people were like, wait a second, shouldn't they be looking? And he even made the comment to you about, they said they wanted to have somebody come in and give Michael some help, give Kern some help, and was like, that's exactly what we've been talking about for all this time. I guess when you get down to 126th in net punting going into this playoff game, maybe that was the straw that that finally broke the camel's back, and Coach Banks says, "Oh, maybe I do need to go after a punter."
Yeah, in the touchbacks and average thing, Sark mentioned that on Monday in his press conference. He said, "Hey, he's not just a guy with a big leg. He can actually, he can place the ball and do those kinds of things. So he's a well-rounded punter." The fact that Texas reached out to him, exactly, we were all saying last year, like, they should bring in a punter because, Michael Kern might have come in and averaged 50 yards a punt for all we knew, right? But he was such an unknown as a true freshman. You and I and Catch and many others were of the belief, yes, Texas should have brought in a punter last year. And listen, I mean, not having a punter didn't cost them a game or anything necessarily. I mean, I don't think having Jack Baumeister on the roster helps them beat Georgia in either of those games. But, it's just you want to be at the best at every position you can be to be a championship caliber team. In hindsight, yeah, I mean, I don't know if the coaches would admit it, but yeah, they probably would say, yeah, we probably should have done this last year. I thought the other comment that was interesting by Jack, he said one of the appeals of Texas was several things. I mean, the program, the academics. Like I said, he's coming in as a graduate transfer. I asked him, I said, "Hey, what are you studying?it?" It was something I was like, I don't even know what the heck that means. So I'm not even gonna try to tell y'all.
I don't know what it is, but Texas has it.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but it was some kind of weird communication. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing he said was Jeff Banks runs a pro style special teams. And he goes, that will prepare me for the next level if he makes it to the NFL. I don't really know what a pro style, we know what pro style offenses are, right?
Yeah.
We even know to some degree what pro style defense. You don't really hear that term. I don't think I've ever heard the term pro style special teams. Just for us, who don't, we're not ingrained in special teams. We just think snap, punt, boom, cover. I mean, but apparently Texas runs a pro style special teams, which was appealing to Jack Baumeister as a punter. So don't exactly know what that means. Maybe it's like, because in the NFL, you don't see a lot of like the rolling rugby punts. I honestly, I don't know what it means, Chad, but it was appealing to him that Texas runs a pro style special teams and a pro style punting game.
Yeah, that was an interesting note. And I think, every little bit can help you. And I agree with you, Jason. I know everybody keeps saying, oh, a punter hadn't cost him a game. I would just remind people that first Georgia game, I know turnovers were a part of it too, but go back and watch that first half and where the game occurred. Go watch where the game was occurring. Georgia came into that game with an elite punter and Texas did not. I'm not saying it was the only reason, but just consider those things. I think in big games, in playoff games, close margin games, what could it hurt? And again, I love the style of those numbers is big. I don't just need a guy that can boom it. What you need is Michael Dixon. Dixon wasn't elite just because he could kick a long way.
Full game MVP, Michael Dixon, right?
Right. And the reason, Jason, is when I want a badass punter nowadays, I want the cannons, but I also want the lawn darts. And Dixon was the master of both. When I need 53, he gave me 53. But when you needed him to stop one on the 4-yard line where guys didn't even need to touch it, he could do that too. And it feels like this is that type of guy. He's got variety in the kicks, and that's big.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you pin a team on the 5-yard line versus them getting on the 20 or on a touchback or even a 25 or something with a return, I mean, that's huge, man. The odds of them scoring at least a field goal go up considerably. So, I mean, it's not just about, you want a guy that averages 45 or 45 plus, but being able to pin, place those punts, which ironically was what Michael Kern was kind of known for coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen the leg strength necessarily from Kern, but I don't think we've necessarily seen the placement punts either. But Jack Baumeister is supposed to be good at both of them.
So obviously the punter is what started the portal list for Texas. Then a couple other names happened over the weekend. By the way, Jason also was able to talk to a couple guys in the 2025 class. We'll get some of those thoughts coming up here as we will transfer to a little recruiting talk. But in terms of the portal, Jason, they also addressed 2 defensive needs that we had talked about. One of them is the biggest need, figuratively and literally, D-tackle, with Cole Brevard of Purdue. I'm going Brevard. Might be Brevard. I don't know.
I've been saying Brevard in my head, but okay.
Brevard? Okay. We can go Brevard.
I don't know. Hey, I may be wrong. We'll see which one's wrong.
Big 6'3", 333 is how I see him listed here. And then Brad Spence, the linebacker from Arkansas. Both, we had talked about linebacker a little bit, considering what you're losing, from this year's team and what you might need. Give me your thoughts on these two guys. They don't feel like they don't feel like jaw-dropping gets in the portal, but they feel like they have substance to me. What do you think?
Yeah, can I tell you a little backstory about how these or when these happened and what I was doing, which will then kind of tie into if we get to my little Mousegate story later.
Okay.
So Saturday morning, Chad, I woke up and we're going to get to talking to about these guys. So bear with me, viewers. Saturday morning, I woke up and I was like, I don't have a football game to cover today for the Longhorns. And I was like, you know what? My daughter had a gymnastics meet up in Georgetown for 3 hours, but she wasn't participating because she sprained her ankle. So I'm like, I'm not going to sit there for 3 hours if she's not competing, right? So I was like, you know what? Hey, told my wife, I was like, I'm going to take your car to CarMax and get it appraised because we've been talking about trading her car in, maybe doing something after the new year. But I was like, you know, maybe we do it before the new year and get a good deal. So I went to CarMax. I'm getting the car appraised, and Brad Spence commits. Okay, and I was able to get that confirmed. So then from CarMax, I drove and met my wife at a dealership up in Georgetown, and then Cole Brevard commits while I'm driving. And Zach from our Orange Blood staff texts is like, hey, Brevard committed. I'm like, oh, I'm driving. Can you post it? So he did. So that's how those things happen. I was very much out of pocket. I was trying to do some car stuff. I'm like, damn it, can I have a couple hours on a Saturday to myself? So anyways, let's talk about the pickups. And we'll circle back to that story a little bit later. I really like the Brad Spence pickup. You know, he's from the Houston area. Texas recruited him out of high school. Kind of went a different direction Texas did. So he goes to Arkansas. You know, he's been very productive at Arkansas, Chad. As a freshman, he had 16 tackles. Okay, but he had a big jump this sophomore year, 55 tackles this year, this last season. He was one of the top 10 graded linebackers in terms of run support by Pro Football Focus. You know, there's not a lot of Arkansas film out on him, but he is an explosive athlete. I think he's a guy that's probably been better in college maybe than people anticipated he would be. He's a guy that can come in and, you know, nobody's going to take Anthony Hill off the field, right? And Leon Lafau is pretty established, but he gives you some depth. I think he can push Leon Lafau, certainly. He's a David Benda type that's probably more productive. You know, he's a good athlete. You watch him, you see the athleticism on the film. He can play a traditional linebacker role. He can edge guy in situational stuff and come off the edge as an edge rusher. You know, you got Colin Simmons there, so you don't need a lot of help. But if you need a situational thing, hey, Brad, we need to do that for a couple series or for a game or two, whatever. So I really like this pickup. I mean, is he, you know, an all-conference, SEC all-conference player? No, he's not. But, I mean, he's a productive player that's going to come in, and I think he will certainly be a contributor for Texas. I wouldn't put it past him to be a starter for Texas. I think he's that talented, but I think he's an instant player that will come in and contribute for Texas at the linebacker position. Cole Brevard, the lineman out of Purdue, I don't know a ton. You know, I've kind of been reading up and trying to watch some film. You know, he missed a little bit of time this last year with injury. Not ultra productive, but Texas needs interior defensive linemen. We know that, right? They need big bodies, maybe just kind of space eater types, which we thought maybe Sadir Mitchell would be. Of course, Sadir just entered the portal. He was going to go in, then he wasn't, and now Sadir's in the portal. Well, Cole Brevard comes in at 335, roughly. He's a space eater guy that can free up Brad Spence. He can free up Ant Hill. He can free up Leon Lafau. So, you know, not an ultra-productive guy, but you don't necessarily – I always liken that to – you know, people get sick of my Steelers references, but Casey Hampton with the Steelers. Okay, Big Hamp was a interior – guy in a 3-4 defense, and people will be like, why is he making all-pro? Because he only had this many tackles. That's not his job. His job is to occupy blockers. He can still make those plays occasionally, of course. You want that, but his job is to chew up blockers, multiple blockers, free up those linebackers. Well, that's what you're probably going to get from Cole Brevard. He's not a guy that's going to live in the offensive backfield, but he's a guy that can make some plays, and he's a guy that can kind of chew up some space and take on some blockers, free up other players around him to make plays. So interesting pickup. You know, I think Texas still needs certainly at least one, maybe two, who knows, maybe three other defensive tackles. Yeah. They need a few of them for sure, but they got their first one in Cole Brevard coming from Purdue.
Jason, I think Texas fans will forgive you if you make a Steelers reference that involves Casey Hampton. Maybe. If you're going to go somewhere, go to the top, right?
My favorite Steelers story is when I went to a playoff game up there in December, freezing ass cold with my buddies, and I had my Casey Hampton jersey and my cowboy boots on, and everybody's like, "This dude ain't from Pittsburgh. We know he's not from Pittsburgh."
You know where he's from. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, what a career Casey Hampton had. By the way, before we leave the D tackle discussion, somebody, Thomas threw us, can we talk about Sadir Mitchell and what the hell happened there? It is a bit of an interesting story, Jason. So, I mean, I think we all have this sort of notion of that we'd love to see those big dogs on the defensive line work out, the guys that are even bigger than you normally think about. But it just feels like to me, Sadir Mitchell, the coaching staff or whatever, they've just been trying to keep things under control. And maybe they don't think that is a viable thing moving forward, where they don't feel like they can keep him at an optimal weight, or he does. I don't know what it just feels like something's kind of missing there with Sadir. How do you read that situation?
Very similarly. It seemed like a powder keg waiting to erupt, right? A little bit. Sadir, it's weird because he came in out of high school and he came in out of shape and overweight. Okay. They had to get that kind of in order. They got it, somewhat in order. But there was talk. I didn't see it. I asked Almar yesterday. He didn't see it, but some people in the stands saw it. I forget what game it was, of an altercation with Sadir on the sidelines with somebody. He stormed off. So he was kind of in the doghouse, I assume, for that, assuming that actually happened. But then in one of the off weeks, Sark was asked about, hey, what young guys are, making impressions during the off week when they get more practice reps. And Sark mentioned Sadir Mitchell. So like, okay, maybe the switch has flipped a little bit here. And then the portal opens and there's talk that he's going to enter the portal. And then Sadir's like, nope, not entering the portal. And even Ketch reported, said, hey, like, my sources are saying he's not in the portal for now. And I asked someone very close to the team and defensive linemen, and they said, even this is when Sadir pulled back from the portal, they said, hey, people on the team still think he's going in the portal. And then a few days later, he's back officially in the portal. So, I mean, Sadir may go somewhere and be an All-American, but sometimes there is a maturity thing. It takes a guy's, listen, I'm not judging, I'm not bashing, I'm not thinking about how stupid I was or when I was 18. I mean, you talk about a maturity levels. Yeah. I'm 50 something and people would tell you I still have maturity issues. So, but maybe Sadir needs to go somewhere and get a fresh start, kind of refocus, recalibrate, if you will. And I hope he does, and I hope he does it and does well, but it just wasn't clicking. It wasn't a great fit for him at Texas. He just never kind of cracked through. I think Texas would have liked to have kept him. I mean, you heard Sark talk about him. Obviously, it's a huge need position at interior defensive line. So I think Texas would have loved to have seen him stay, but it just wasn't in the cards. And maybe it'll be best for both sides in the end.
It's interesting. I'm just double checking something here real quick. Okay. I'm interested in. It's such an important position, as you talked about, and the phrase with that position is you need bodies, but keeping everything lined up the way it needs to is got to be really difficult. So if Sadir Mitchell is indeed hitting that portal, we hope he finds a situation that works well for him. Because, man, if that big dancing bear can figure it out, if they can figure it out if he can keep the weight figured out and the want to and all that stuff, man, I think he could be a weapon. But obviously Texas didn't feel like it was with them. As long as we're talking portal stuff, Mike threw this one in, Jason, and we were talking about it right before the show. Is Texas in the running for the Branch brothers out of USC? More importantly, Zachariah. So, Mike, thanks for bringing it up. Zachariah Branch is one of the greatest names I've heard in a while. But, Jason, he's also a badass. You talk about highlight reel guy. There's Ryan Williams this year from Bama. There's the cat at Ohio State, which I can't think of. Is it Smith? Is there a Smith? Is it
Jeremiah Smith?
Maybe. But then this dude.
I went on Prize Picks on him, but I can't pull his name.
The first time I saw Zachariah Branch play, it was unforgettable. And now he's going to be in the portal along with his brother. I'm trying to look up whether it's little brother or big brother. And let's see. Zion Branch is his name. And this looks like class of 21, maybe. So maybe it's an older brother. And okay, 28 freshman. Okay, yeah. So it looks like the brother is older, and
Zachariah is 23, so.
And he's right. He's a 22, 23 area. So so it's him and an older brother. I'm assuming both went to Bishop Gorman. So package deal here with the Branch brothers. Jason, if Texas was going to splash, Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech would be a pretty big splash. I would argue Zachariah is the biggest splash possible I've seen at receiver.
Yeah, I think so. Branch Zachariah was 2023. His brother was 2022, so his 1 year difference there.
Just 1 year.
Okay. Yeah, both out of Bishop Gorman. Zachariah was a 5-star. I mean, high 5-star. He was top 10 in the country. His brother was a Rivals 100 player, so talented player there too. So, but Zachariah, let's be honest, he's kind of the gold nugget everybody's digging for in this one. Is Texas going to be in play? I would think Texas will certainly kick the tires. I mean, especially kind of being from Nevada originally, but playing out in California. I mean, kind of a West Coast guy, right? So you would think Sark in Texas would be an option there. But I mean, he's going to have a lot of options. I've seen Michigan thrown around. I mean, he'll be able to pick up the phone and go anywhere he wants. But Sark's got an appealing offense, 4 receivers, possibly multiple guys leading the program at receiver, possibly going to the league. So, yeah, I think Texas will be in play there. Now, again, I mean, he's going to have so many options. I can't say right now how strongly he'll consider Texas. But big-time playmaker, you said it, Chad, just an elite athlete. Like, I was looking at the Rivals rankings. Maybe he's not officially in the portal yet because he's not ranked. Ironically, they've got Micah Hudson 1, Eric Singleton 2. The Georgia Tech receiver who just visited Texas. I think Zachariah Branch, when he gets ranked, probably takes over that top spot. Honestly, I think he should be your number 1 player in the portal. Now, we'll see where they slot him when he comes in. But, yeah, he's that dynamic of a player, that electric of an athlete. So, I mean, Texas would be silly to at least not put some feelers out there and see if there's something cooking there.
No doubt about it. I would assume that is that would be the case.
And Mike had a follow-up, if I could put that up. If he has a no contact tag, that just means coaches can't contact him. But he can contact schools. But there's ways to circumvent that. They all have agents. A guy like Zachariah Branch is definitely going to have an agent. So, you can kind of circumvent that, kind of going through some back channels there.
Yeah, it's just like
doesn't mean Jason Sukamel can't contact him.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe the person that you're trying to ask to the prom doesn't want to talk to you, but you ask a friend to ask them, then you didn't talk to them directly. That's how it works. Have the agent call up. Let's just say, for example, what would you think?
Say we had $1 million lying around here for NIL.
What would that do for you? By the way, for those wondering about the numbers, I just looked them up. Jason, Zachariah Branch led USC in receptions, tied at 47. Tied with a running back, by the way. 47 catches. He had 503 yards. That's second most in yards. He did only have 1 touchdown on the year, about an 11-yard average. But he was so dynamic as a true freshman. And they didn't have that typical USC super explosive offense this year at times. It's interesting. I'd love to know. I need to call a couple of my USC buddies and be like, hey, what's the backstory here? Because receivers don't usually leave Lincoln Riley type offenses, right? So, right. And lately it's this story plus Malachi Nelson's leaving too, right? I think he's just lost a quarterback. Now he may just have the quarterback he likes, but to lose a quarterback.
Miller Moss is in the portal, right? Their USC quarterback. Yeah, Miller Moss.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Miller
true.
Moss. Yeah, because I remember. Man, this portal thing's making my head crazy, but I'm pretty sure Miller Moss is in the portal too. So
I think you're right. He may be losing a couple of those and some receivers. Yeah, it is interesting to think of kind of what's going on out there with Lincoln. But that is a name to keep in mind with Zachariah Branch. And then, Jason, you mentioned Eric Singleton. So from what we know, and I know Ketch and I are going to get into this more today on House Divided. I know Ketch really wants to talk about portal and kind of where Texas sits and why, fans are watching this and they're like, come on, Texas should be getting all these big names and maybe why that's not happening. But in terms of Singleton, The report was he was going to be on campus yesterday. I'm assuming that happened, but if we're sitting here on Wednesday morning, midday recording this show, and there hasn't been a story yet, am I wrong to think that's bad news for Texas? Like, I was thinking, we always talk about, can you get them on campus and get them to make that choice like these defensive guys did, like the punter did over the weekend? You think it's bad news for Texas that Singleton has come and gone and no announcement?
No, I don't think so. And, he's probably leaving today at some point. I don't know when. It's funny. Somebody asked me today. There's actually another reporter hit me up and said, "Hey, we're going to stalk the airport today for Singleton." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that, dude. It's easier during official visits when there's like 10 guys leaving, right? And we know they're going to be leaving about noon, but I'm not sitting down at the Austin airport for all day for one interview, possibly one interview." But so I think he's leaving today, Chad. I just don't know when. But I don't think it's bad news because he's such a high-profile guy. He's got his top 5: Ole Miss, Texas, Auburn, Miami, and LSU. Okay, those are the top 5 that were kind of put out earlier this week. So, he's probably going to visit all 5 of them. There was talk, kind of grapevine chatter, of him having a very high NIL request, if you will. And his family members kind of went on, and this is coming from the Georgia Tech side, and his family members kind of went on and like, "No, it's not true. It's not all about money." And maybe it's not all about money, but I mean, certainly NIL is going to be a factor. So, I don't think it's bad news. I didn't really expect him to come in and commit right away. I mean, we need to find out, we'll track our sources like, hey, what's the vibe? Did Texas make a good impression? But I didn't expect him to commit like the punter did or like Brad Spence. He's such a high-profile guy. I think he's going to take his time. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like, you're hunting for a couple jobs. Like, okay, what's your offer? What's your offer? You got multiple people wanting you, or you're buying a car and you got your 2 dealerships and you're dealing with prices. What's your best offer? What's your best offer? I mean, I think there's going to be some of that with Singleton. Okay, I'm going to visit these schools. Let's see what you guys have to offer me, and then I'll make my decision. So I didn't really expect him to commit on this visit, but if you're Texas, if you came out of this thing feeling pretty good, and we'll see. I haven't heard yet. We'll kind of kick the tires on that today, but I think that's probably about what you can hope for.
So, and the other thing, Jason, that I was looking up as you're talking is to think of the time frame of everything in terms of the portal. Another reason Texas fans may want to try to have a little bit of patience. In addition to the fact that the money situation is different this year, the schools having the money that they can put up is different. But also remember the time frame. If your bowl game occurs before the 28th of December, then your portal closes the 28th of December. But if your bowl game is after that point, then you get 5 extra days. So just looking at the bowl schedule, here's December 28th and moving forward. Schools like North Carolina, Nebraska, Boston College, TCU, Miami, NC State, BYU and Colorado, Iowa, Missouri, Bama, Michigan, Washington, Louisville, South Carolina, Baylor, LSU, and I think, is it Ole Miss that still has a bowl game coming late in there? And Ole Miss plays on January 2nd. Just as examples, right, of teams that we know would have some talent that they – and back to your point about agents, the agent can always reach out to schools and say, hey, just letting you know, but hearing something that my guy might be interested in moving. They're getting ready for a bowl right now. Keep it in mind. So I think that patience needs to be factored in as well, because as an example, if you want somebody, or you're hearing that somebody at Ole Miss is thinking about hitting the portal, Jason, they've got till January 7th to hit the portal.
So that works. You're telling me something I didn't know. I knew that was true for the teams in the college football playoff, but if your team's in a bowl game after the closing of the portal, you still get that 5-day window?
I believe that's true. Yes.
Okay.
As I understand it, that is the rule. Because otherwise you're being unfair to, you'd be unfair to those teams too.
Yeah, it's one of the few good rules if that's true, because otherwise, you're in a situation where guys are not going to play in the bowl if they're wanting to enter the portal. So
yeah. So as an example, so Ole Miss is Thursday, January 2nd. The very next day, Texas State, just to pick a school inside the state of Texas, they have a bowl game. So the way I'm understanding that rule is all those guys would have until the 8th. All the Ole Miss guys would have until the 7th if they wanted to hit that portal. So that's something we've never had to deal with, Jason, but this is the first year of like this team goes out. I mean, heck, let's look at this weekend. What happens if it's not all chalk?
Yeah.
Right? What happens if Tennessee upsets Ohio State? What happens if Indiana beats Notre Dame? And those players, and then we'll be sitting there before the 28th, and now the 28th is the portal close, but now the Notre Dame guys are involved and Ohio State's involved. That'll change the math of everything real quickly.
And it's interesting because even like Texas, you've got a couple guys who entered the portal, like Justice Finkley, who is still going to practice with the team. But it was easy for a guy like Justice Finkley or Alex Bryant to enter the portal because they're not major contributors. But if a team, and listen, I hate putting this out there, but if a team like Texas was to lose, or Ohio State or Notre Dame this weekend, you may see some of their more active players who are actually bigger contributors enter the portal. Yeah, because right now, players from those teams, it's going to be your lower on the depth chart players. But yeah, if some of those teams lose this weekend, I mean, you may see some talented players from those rosters enter the portal. That's for sure.
By the way, good addition here on the chat from Mike. Says, I think C. Wilfong has entered his prediction for Singleton to Auburn. Mike, as we get up today and get ready for a Wednesday, that is the prevailing thought, that it might be Auburn. He released that list of 5 the other day that did include Auburn and Ole Miss. There were rumors at one point it was going to be Ole Miss right as he was leaving there, and now the rumors have circled back around to it may be Auburn.
He visited Ole Miss first, I think, maybe. But Auburn, listen, man, Auburn has some deep NIL pockets. They're pretty desperate right now. So I would not argue that pick, certainly. I haven't heard Auburn. But we haven't heard a lot of like warm fuzzies with Texas. Same with the tight end for Purdue. I mean, he visited, but people kind of behind the scenes are like, Texas thinks they're in it, but don't think they're the favorites necessarily. The Singleton visit's still pretty fresh, but there just hasn't been a lot of buzz like, oh, this looks really good for Texas. And, Texas isn't as desperate, especially at wide receiver, as maybe Auburn is. And just in general, Auburn, desperate times call for desperate measures. I know even with the high school recruiting, guys that signed in December, Auburn was throwing around some pretty flashy things to some of these high school recruits. So it wouldn't surprise me if they dug deep in their pockets for Singleton and maybe took the lead there.
Yeah, we thank everybody for jumping in the Specs chat here. We're going to talk about a couple of recruiting notes as well. Before that, let's have Lisa remind you about Specs. Texas and Clemson, Saturday at 3. Get stocked up.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs.
And remember, if you're looking for a place to come watch the game, we do advise TCH Social Austin. That's what it looked like for Texas and Georgia. We'll pack that place full again. The Bad Beat Bacon is waiting on you. And, I've got a plan for those screens. We'll have the college game, the NFL game. We're going to have FCS semifinals and the high school championship games. We got 2 Austin area teams fighting for a state title, Vandegrift and Westlake. We'll have it all up on that big badass screen. So come see us for that. That'll be TCH Social Austin. Remember, those beer specials start an hour before the game, and you have an extra special reason to show up this week. One of our listeners has donated $20 so that the first 20 of you that come in and just let me know you want a $1 draft, you're going to get it. All you need to do is just scream at me, Stella, and you're going to get $1 at TCH Social Austin. That's all you have to do. Now, if you're too
I didn't think about, Chad, the high school playoffs or championship games will be, so we'll have that. I'll have my Steelers and the Ravens, Texas, Clemson. It's going to be hard for me to focus, man. I'm going to.
I got a plan here, Jason. So I'll put it up again. The lower right here is that screen that you're all too familiar with. Here's what I'm going to do. We'll have the Texas game in the middle. We'll have whatever NFL game is on, both on the lower right and lower left.
Okay, I like it. That'll be my Steelers and Ravens starting at 3:30. So
3:30, exactly. But at noon, Texans fans, it's going to be you against the Chiefs. And then at 3:30, it'll switch over to that. Upper right, we'll put the FCS semifinals. Upper left, we'll put the high school championship games.
I love it. I love having the NFL on 2 screens so I can my eyes can either way they wander. I get to get a glimpse of my Steelers games.
That's it. That's what I'm doing. I'm thinking about you. We're also thinking about those people that maybe just want to play some poker and they can't find their time to get to the poker house. Well, they've got it for you. Texas Card House presents Hijack Poker. Go to hijackpoker.com. You can download that app onto any device you want and use that code OB20. It's good until the first of the year, till January 1st. It gets you $20 of free play. This is for everybody in the great state of Texas. And as you can see, you can cash out at one of 6 Texas Card House locations, including TCH Social Austin. But it is also good to point it out. The other day when I mentioned the specials and stuff, somebody asked if those specials, the drink specials, are good at their other locations. No, just the Austin location. They do. It's a special Orange Bloods deal just for us, just at the TCH Social Austin location. So don't go walking into one of those other locations looking for a $2 jellyfish. It will not happen. It will not happen for you. All right. We got some good chats in today. We hit a lot of portal so far. Jason, I wanted to get you to comment a little bit on recruiting, because I know people like to not only see Texas get a big time recruiting class, but also when you catch up with these guys. I know fans kind of like that stuff too, to find out a little bit more about the kids. You were able to talk to a couple guys in the 25 class in this week's 3-2-1.
Yeah, I talked to, those guys. It's funny. Those guys signed, it was 2 weeks ago today, actually, right? Feels like forever ago, right? Yep. And I feel bad for those guys that kind of go from being celebrities to afterthoughts in like a matter of a day, right? So, but I wanted to follow up with especially Myron Charles, the defensive lineman out of Florida that signed with Texas, because, Myron and I talked during his recruitment quite a bit, but he flirted with Florida quite a bit there at the end. And I wanted to follow up with him. Like, all right, dude, now you're signed. Let's really get the story. Let's find out how it went. So I did talk with Myron Charles, the defensive tackle, just to kind of find out, hey, how close was it? And he goes, man, it was pretty close. I kind of went back and forth between Texas and Florida there at the end. He said, but that week of, he signed on with Texas on Wednesday. It was building up more towards Texas that all week. Now, it's interestingly, he was the first one to sign. So 5 years from now, when someone says, who was the first player to sign with Texas in the 2025 class? It was Myron Charles. But I asked him, I said, when did you officially know? And he said literally that morning is when he officially 100% decided, the morning that he signed his letter of intent. Wow. I don't know if I fully believe that. I think he was probably leaning very strongly to Texas, because he signed his letter of intent at like 7 a.m. Central Time. So, but it was interesting. He said, yeah, there was some back and forth. I mean, it was really, he visited Florida right before a week and a half before signing day. He ended up visiting Texas for that Kentucky game, which was his last visit. But he said he still went back and forth. He talked to both coaches the week of and ended up sticking with his decision to sign with Texas. Big pickup, because he's a good player at a need position, obviously defensive tackle. Myron said, hey, I'm coming in with the mindset in January that I'm going to play early. I'm coming in and I'm going to try to contribute and work hard and make an impact as a true freshman. I mean, the depth chart is there. He'll have a chance to get in that rotation, I think, as a true freshman. So we'll see how it plays out, but he will be enrolling with Texas in January. Good win for Texas over Florida in a close race.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that also is the D tackle position. Is that correct?
Yeah. Or he's actually listed as a defensive end by Rivals. I think he's an interior guy. He's like 285 already. He did say one of the things he brings is versatility on the defense line. He can line up at defensive end. He can line up on the interior. I asked him, I said, do you have a preference, or where do you think you project? And he goes, doesn't matter, man. Just put me out there. I'm going to make plays. I think he'll wind up being an interior guy, Chad.
I think he's one of those guys that could get lost in people's minds, but when he plays, I think he may not be lost anymore. I think the film I've watched on him is good. I know you've talked very highly of him, and it's funny. We talked about Myron a lot, but then we would talk about a Javion Hilson, or we talk about there's some other names along a defensive line that might draw your attention away. But I feel like there's a lot of substance in a guy like that. So you can check out the 3-2-1 article for an update on Myron. Some good notes there. You also had a chance to talk to Bo Barnes. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Bo's one of my favorites. Yeah. Even though he stood us up on our signing day show.
Come on, Bo.
Well, he had a late signing. It wasn't his fault. But no, Bo's awesome. teasing, but like seriously, one of my favorite dudes in this class. Yeah, Bo was interesting. You know, he's a linebacker at a Dallas Skyline. I think let me see where Rivals has him ranked. I'm sorry. Whatever it is, I think they have him underranked. Rivals has him at 172 nationally, which is, puts him in the Rivals 250, obviously, 4-star player. One of the services, I don't even know which one, I think has him as the number 1 linebacker in the country. So that puts him ahead of a guy like Riley Pettijohn. Now, what I like about Bo, he played running back most of his football playing career, prep, peewee, and middle school, even in high school. And then they get a new coaching staff at Skyline. I think it was his sophomore year. And they say, nope, you're a linebacker, dude. And so they move him over to linebacker. So he's still fairly new to the position. He's only playing it a couple of years. Really, I mean, he played running back, so he's obviously a good athlete, right? And he had a tremendous senior season. I think this is a really, really good pickup for Texas. He'll enroll in January. And he's ready too. And I like it. He said, hey, man, I'm coming in to play early. But he goes, I know it's not going to be given to me. I'm going to have to work hard. But I want to get in that rotation and earn it. And then maybe when Ant Hill leaves or if Leon Gulafau, then I can kind of slide into a starting role potentially. But, Bo Barnes is coming in. He's going to work, and he wants to get on the field early, knows he's going to have to earn it. Schools like Oregon and Nebraska tried to get him to waiver throughout his recruitment. He did take a visit to Oregon kind of early in the fall, but it was an unofficial visit just to go watch a game. Never really seriously considered Oregon or Nebraska or anybody else. Just stuck to his guns with Texas in the end. But yeah, good pickup by Texas. I really like the Bo Barnes pickup, and I think he's a guy that has a chance to be a real contributor for Texas, maybe as early as next year, but certainly down the road.
All right, so if you want to hit orangebloods.com, you'll find the 321 article, all kinds of good notes on everything we've talked about today, and you can also find the full story of Mice and Men. It's Jason Sukumel versus the rodent. And in the end, we are glad to say that the human won the battle, Jason. Give us an update on what the heck you've been dealing with at the house.
You know what? This could carry us all the way to your noon show, so I'll try to give you a short version. So it was about a week and a half ago. My truck was giving me issues, and I had to drive it to the dealership, and it was giving me this decreased power notice. I couldn't go more than like 20 miles an hour, Chad. So I drive it down 1431 where the speed limit was like 65 and I'm going like 30, right? Backing up traffic. But I get to the dealership, they get in there and they say, hey, you've got rodent damage, $1,000 and your insurance or your warranty will not cover it because it's an external thing. So I'm okay. So I ended up filing an insurance claim, cost me $500 for a stupid rodent, did some damage to my wires. Well, I told you on Saturday, I took my wife's car to CarMax, right? Because we were thinking about trading it in. I got the appraisal, come home, and I think it was on Sunday, the next day, my wife notices there's a hole in her purse that she leaves in her car, which drives me bonkers. That's a whole other story. She put her car's in the garage, but there's a hole in her purse. She thought her purse maybe got snagged on something. She's asking our kids, did you guys like rip my purse? What's going on? Well, then I don't know, that's just weird. Later in the day, she finds like shreds of paper and plastic from her purse in the back of her car.
Yep.
She's like, oh shit. And she looks a little closer and there's mouse turds all over the place. She's like, I've got a mouse in my car, in her car. Right. So we try to catch it, and he is elusive, and he's getting around the traps, this, that, and the other. One time he triggered the trap, but there was no mouse to be found. So then I got big old rat traps, the big ones. He ate the peanut butter off of those, but it didn't trigger the traps. I had the glue traps. I had the snap traps. I had the kind of ones that go inside and it closes on them. Dude, I had them all. I had like 10 traps in her car, and I couldn't catch this damn mouse. Now, mind you, Chad, we're trying to sell her car. That part of the story I didn't put on Orange Bloods. So I made a deal. What's today? Wednesday? Today's Wednesday? No. Yeah, when I'm not telling you that today's Wednesday. Wait a second. I made a deal on Monday to sell her car to a dealership down in Austin. Yeah. And they were going to deliver the car to us yesterday. So I'm like, I have to catch this damn mouse before they bring me their car and take her car with them. Or like, otherwise they're taking her car with a mouse in it. So yesterday morning, I get up at like 6:30 and I go out and I check the traps. And sure enough, there's that mouse in one of the small mouse traps, the snap traps. And it caught him by the head. Well, he was still alive. So I'm like, oh, thank you, problem solved. So I take him out. I put him in some Walmart bags, and I just put them in my dumpster. So about an hour later, being a softie, I'm like, you know what? I don't want him just suffering like that. So I go out there and I pick up the bag, and he's still alive. So I took him down to the neighborhood park, and I took the trap out. I had my gloves on, of course, and I opened the trap, and I'm like, go, shoot. And he just kind of rolled around. He's like barrel rolling. Like, I don't know if he was in shock. I'm like, oh, maybe the trap like crushed his brain or his neck. I don't know, but he was alive. So I try to put him upright, and he'd walk and then tumble. So I'm like, okay. So this was right by the sidewalk. I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave you there because if someone walks their dog or something. So I pick him up in my hands and I carry him about 100 yards and I put him in a little bushel of trees.
Man,
I'm like, okay, you got a chance, dude. I'm doing you a favor. So I leave. And then later yesterday, I was going to lunch. I stopped back by the park.
oh,
I walked to the trees.
You're checking on the mouse?
Yes, to check on the mouse.
Damn.
And he was gone. So I'm hoping maybe sometimes like those animals or birds will go into shock. I'm hoping he just was in shock, came to his senses and ran off. And I hope it wasn't like a snake or something that came and took him. But my hope is that he's out there running around in the park, having a great time, living his life. But yeah, so that was my mouse skate story. And then we ended up last night, yesterday afternoon, they delivered a new car for my wife, and we got rid of her other car. I'm hoping there's not baby mice in that other car or anything like that. But it's gone. The mouse is gone, and the car is gone. So,
Jason, I just want to say, as a country boy that would have been doling out some serious country justice to that mouse, I applaud you for your humanity, because that mouse would not be telling stories if it had been involved in one of my cars.
I thought about, especially the fact that it's cost me a bunch of money, right? I mean, seriously, I thought about putting on my Doc Martens and being like, all right, mouse, I'm going to put you out of your misery real quick. But I just don't have that in me, Chad. So I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to take you to the park and give you a chance to survive. So.
There really is one of those moments, it's a boundary line moment in your life. There's one thing about letting the trap kill a mouse.
Yeah.
But if the trap doesn't kill the mouse and you are watching the mouse still alive, there is a bit of a test of your humanity.
Yes.
You, I would argue, passed that humanity test. This country boy would not have passed the humanity test.
I mean, truthfully, I was hoping the trap would have just instantly killed him so I wouldn't feel so guilty.
Exactly.
But yeah, when he's still kicking and like fighting with me, I'm like, oh man, I can't just let him, because like, who knows? Like, I put him in that dumpster. He may have sat there for like 2 days, like trapped in that thing before he eventually died. So I can't do that.
Because I was partially raised by a wonderful grandmother whose attitude would have been, now, Chad, we can't let that animal suffer. But the end game would not have been putting him in a park. The end game would have been, we cannot let him suffer, and let me show you what that means.
Well, like Mike in the chat said, I'm trying to do the nice thing, but I may have like just put him in there where he got eaten alive, which is even a worse death than me putting him out of his misery quickly.
Hey, you know what? The owl thanks you, Jason. The owl thanks you.
Well, I gave him his string. At least I said, it's up to you at this point, buddy. I let him loose and I put him under the nice little where he's kind of hidden. So I gave him his chance. It was up to him to survive after that. So.
That is fantastic. Before we get out of here, Flintstone Foot Job asked the question some have. Any chance Texas can get that punter on campus now and have him punt in the playoffs? He doesn't need to know a playbook. Flintstone, I know that may be a little bit of a joke, but just to clarify, anybody who's in this portal cannot play in these playoffs. That's not.
I did not know that. That's funny that Flintstone asked that, because I asked the punter that. I said, "Hey, because he's enrolling like I don't remember, 10th of January or something." I said, "Could you, in theory, then punt in one of these playoff games?" He goes, he didn't even know. He goes, you know what? I don't know. Good question. But the answer we found out is no, he cannot.
No, you can't do that. They're not going to allow that.
But again, I said, hey, just put a Michael Kern jersey on him. Tell him to speak with an English or American accent, not a Australian accent, and go out there and punt.
Yeah. And of course, somebody in our OB chat did throw in the great line of, nah, they'd know it when the punt went 40 yards. Oh, very good. Very good. Well done. Yes, well done. There you go. Thank you all for the chats and super chats. Jason, anything else we need to hit today? We covered some portals, some recruiting, and your mouse hunting. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything. Texas was trying to get a Central Florida defensive tackle to visit this week. He wound up signing with Texas Tech, I think maybe just this morning or last night. I don't know. Okay,
so now I hadn't heard. So Lee Hunter ends up at Tech.
Yeah, he's with Tech. He visited Tech this week, and they did a good job apparently, and got him locked up while he was there in Lubbock. So I won't be visiting Texas. So no, Chad, I think we've covered most everything. I'm sure we'll have more portal news pretty much daily. It feels like over the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. All right. We got House Divided coming up at 12. More thoughts on the portal. Texas fans, if you're a little concerned about what Texas is not doing in the portal, Counselor Ketchum has the explanation for you. He's been telling you for a while, but he's going to reiterate today exactly what's going on in this very unique portal and maybe why Texas isn't doing some of the things you think they should be doing. We appreciate you jumping in to that Specs chat. Over 320 of you in there right now as we get ready to shut it down. Thank you for liking, subscribing, getting those notifications. Thank you for getting the channel up over 12 million views. We do appreciate you. Y'all have a great week. Another reminder, Texas and Clemson is a 3 o'clock kick. Come see us at TCH Social Austin. TCH Social Austin also sponsors Jason's 321 article every week. They have great stuff going on over there, whether you love to play poker or not. If you're one of those people thinking, man, I'm just not a poker player, don't worry. Neither am I.
Neither am I.
Yeah, neither is Jason. Yeah. We show up to watch the games. We show up for this. Jason's in that picture. My wife's in that picture. Blake, the super producer's in that picture. Some of our great fans that are watching right now are in that picture. And it's a great place to watch games. As I said, we'll have NFL games on. We'll have the high school championships on. We'll find all kinds of good stuff. And that college game will be right in the middle, including the Texas Clemson game. So come see us there. And again, check out hijackpoker.com if you want to play some great online poker for everybody in the state of Texas. It is a great new app that's out there. Go OB20 on the code. It'll get you $20 of free play. All right. Until next week. Well, let's see. Next week is
Christmas on Wednesday. I don't know about you, but I'm not doing a show on Christmas.
I don't think we're going to have a recruiting hour next Wednesday. And then the following one is going to be January 1st. And that's probably going to be, well, not probably, that could be Texas in a bowl game. I don't want to get too far. That could be Texas in a quarterfinal. So we'll have to see.
Maybe we'll move it to a different day that second week. But next week, no, I'm not. You're not going to see this face next Wednesday.
Don't think that'll happen. So just get those notifications, like we always tell you. Like, subscribe, get your notifications in case we do need to move stuff around. Y'all have a great week. Certainly have a good Christmas week next week, and we will talk to you on the recruiting hour when it makes sense to talk to you on the recruiting hour. Keep it right here on Orange Bloods Live, and House Divided is coming up